Welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we have a very special game, in my opinion, or preview demo of Resident Evil 2 that was actually released with the release of the Resident Evil Director's Cut edition way back in 1997. Honestly, this year I was super hyped and super pumped for the release of this demo, because when, as you all know, I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil, along with, say, with my friends, my brothers were all crazy about Resident Evil, and having played the first game literally religiously for almost a year and a half to 2 years, where we pretty much played it to death. We learned the ins and outs of everything of the game, and then for Resident Evil 2 to be announced, we were just, I couldn't believe it. If I'll be honest, of any game in history that I've been the most excited for, it was this game. I've never gotten so excited about a sequel to a game ever, like, you know, because I loved the first one so much, and I just couldn't wait to get to play this. And the months passed by, and I remember even like reading magazines and articles anywhere I could find any sort of information on it, just to see a few pictures of it from time to time to see what it was about and what it looked like. And it was just,
what are you doing here?
It was just epic. There's no way to describe it.
I'm a human.
How it made you feel to get excited about it. And even at that point in time, you were still playing loads of games, awesome games on the PlayStation. But this was the highlight reel, basically, in my opinion. Now, I remember going back to some of the earlier magazine articles and so forth that I mentioned, and in the early days, as most of you know, even for people that don't know, Resident Evil 2 did go through a few alterations and changes in its development cycle, and eventually the version that we got from after this demo was the final version of the game on the PlayStation 1, but originally had a whole different outtake, basically had a whole different premise, different environments and so forth, and it looked completely different from the finished game as to what you can see here. But even in this demo, compared to the original game that was finally released, there is segments in this here that are slightly different as well, so it was still a work in progress at that time. So literally, like, Capcom actually scrapped the whole idea, just they kept certain elements of it, but they reworked the entire concept because they felt that the game wasn't adhering to the progress of the storyline, and that the graphics technically weren't as good or free flowing compared to what they had envisioned, so they completely reworked the game. So even at that, it didn't really matter at that stage, because you were just excited to get a Resident Evil sequel in any shape or form. And as you can see here, it was definitely a lot more full on than the original game from the get-go. It was just crazy. The fact that you were right on the city streets straight away and you could see the whole devastation of Raccoon City. And that was the one thing you were kind of excited about, to go from an isolated mansion in the middle of the mountains to literally being in an apocalypse, just being outrun or overrun with zombies, was absolutely insane. So myself and my mates and that were just super excited to play this game. We were trying to find as much information as we possibly could as time went on, and remember reading the magazine articles when you would get the magazines, like, say, every couple of weeks when you could afford to buy them. Once you seen Resident Evil on it, you couldn't wait to actually figure things out and to just research as much as you possibly could to try and figure things out. And I don't know how many times you spent hours just looking over the same articles and pictures again and again and again, just to try and visualize in your head what the game would actually be like. As I said, like, for a lot of games that I had actually played, and like, I was super stoked and excited to play a lot of the games on the PlayStation, but this game brought it to a whole new level in terms of excitement and tension and the build up to getting super excited for a game. Like, of all the games that I have looked forward to in time, this definitely is without a doubt the game I've looked forward to the most of any sequel to any video game in history, even on the PlayStation in general. And it's worthwhile in saying that because the amount of playability in the original game was just phenomenal. But even with this demo, it was incredible because it did give you a glimpse as to what was going to be available in the final game when it was released. But even at that, myself and my mates just actually played the crap out of this game. I actually remember when Resident Evil Director's Cut was originally released, it was my mate Derek that actually got it, but what actually happened was he was actually at work and he couldn't buy it, so what he actually done was he gave me the money to buy it for him. And it ended up that I had it sitting in the house and I was itching to play it and I couldn't. I was like, no, I actually was holding back, says no, it's my mate's game, I have to give him the privilege of having the first playthrough of it. So he called over to the house when he finished work later on and he's like, dude, do you have the game? He's like, oh yeah, have it. And I was just like, he says, did you play it? I was like, no. I says, I was wanting to, but I don't know why, but I just didn't want to, I was torturing myself. But then he says, I should call over later on, sure, I'll be playing it or whatever later on that evening. And this was on a Saturday evening, I think, from what I remember. And this is a long time ago, this is 1997, late 1997. So that's 23 years ago. That'll tell you how long it is from the moment this video has been made. And I was like, right, so gave it a few hours and then I called over to him then later on that evening. He was up in his room playing it, and he was playing on the small TV he had in his room, and he was actually playing the director's cut at that point, and he's like, I says, I played it, I says, it's awesome. He says, do you want to go over it? And then he put it on, so he played through it first, and I was just like, oh my god, I couldn't believe what I was actually seeing. It was like, it just looks absolutely incredible. It was definitely, like you mentioned, definitely a different far cry from likes of The Mansion. But then as soon as you got to the police station, it reminded you so much of The Mansion as well, because of the layout. The style was very similar in terms of the layouts of the corridors, even the look and feel. It was very almost like old school, kind of like Victorian-esque kind of style in terms of the layout and stuff like that. And plus, the graphics were awesome as well. You could clearly see on the characters, the detail on the character models and stuff, even the facial expressions as well. It definitely was a lot more detailed compared to the original game, so you knew rightly well straight off the bat that it was definitely a step up. Now, even though you were playing through this here, you could clearly see that a lot of the things you can't really use in the demo because they're locked out. But there were certain elements in the demo where you could get certain keys that was for doors that were to be able to be opened. But there were certain doors in this demo, even to this day, I've still never been able to open them because there was certain keys that you needed to find, and obviously you couldn't get into the doors to find them. And to be honest, we played this, myself and my mates played this demo for months, if not for years, trying to figure out keys to where they would be. We searched high and low, spent hours trying to figure out where those keys could possibly be, but only one key ever really showed up. The only key that would actually show up is at the end of it, but you couldn't use it, as you'll see now in a wee while. So we've no other way of knowing if the keys could be found in the game. The only thing that we've been able to notice over the years is if anyone that had the likes of those old chipped cards that you plug into the back end of certain models of the PlayStation, like with the action replay cards, apparently they had cheats on that would unlock a lot of the keys and stuff, and that was the only way that you could get the key to really unlock all the hidden doors in here that you couldn't get into, which was a pity because it just meant that the average person couldn't get into it. And even to this day I still have never been able to get into those rooms, even though I do have an idea of what they're like, because I imagine they're still the same from the original games when it was originally released, but I've still never been able to see what was actually in those rooms in general, which is a bit of a pity. But again, that didn't really matter because you were just so excited to play and explore, and from what you had seen in the magazines and you were just so curious as to know what was there and what it was about, and it was just absolutely incredible. Another cool feature was the fact that, like, still, like from the original game, you could dismember the zombies and stuff like that, but this one you could actually blow them in half if you shot them correctly with the shotgun. But what was cool as well is if Leon took a lot of damage, he could literally start fumbling around or pretty much stumbling around the place, and it looked like he'd be able to use the shotgun as like a crutch to hold himself up. So it really kind of, the damage aspect of it was very realistic for its time, which was very unique. It was definitely a really cool feature to actually have, and it made it a lot more realistic. So it did, which was just absolutely incredible. No, we played this demo to death, so we did, like, myself and my mates. And there were so many cool features, like, it was definitely a very good teaser for what was actually to come when the original game came out the following year. Even though, like, we had, like, director's cut there, and it had a load of cool features and even had rearranged items and so forth, with new game modes and different costumes and stuff. But this was the highlight reel of that package, basically, because anyone that was getting director's cut was really getting it for this demo. Because anyone that was a fan of Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 1 wanted to play this demo. That was the best thing about it. As you can see there, that's one of the doors there that you actually can't get into. I remember actually my mate actually saying to me, he's like, "Oh dude, wait till you see this." And I remember when I was first experienced with the Litco, because I thought I assumed it was going to be like a hunter from the original game, and I'd seen this, I was like, what the hell is this? And I remember it scared the crap out of me when I seen it coming down the ceiling, and how difficult it was to actually kill as well. It was so hard to actually hit it without actually getting hit, basically, as well. It was definitely scared the crap out of me, so it did, because it just happened so sudden. Like, you see the blood dripping down on the ground, but you didn't expect something literally just to fall down. So for the first time playing, it was definitely an epic jump scare. Plus the music and the soundtrack, and it was very eerie as well. I know I saw a couple of these tracks, like even the one particularly in this room here, didn't make it into the final game, but it was very eerie. That was the one thing I loved about it. It had really a unique presence about it. That's why I always maintain, like, and even say in a lot of the other videos, is the reason why one of the reasons why I love the PlayStation 1 so much is the games had the ability to capture so much of your imagination. Now I know I was young, I was only a teenager at the time when I played it, but even at that, because it was so unique, and it was really kind of the start of things to come, like whether you could have stereo surround sound and different sound effects that you couldn't really get in like the old 16-bit consoles or 8-bit consoles, that everything was pretty much like movie-like quality for the first time ever, and it was just absolutely insane. It really brought it to a whole new level. And when you're playing games like this here, that really would scare the crap out of you, that really give you frights and jump scares, and that you were terrified to go into a room because you weren't sure what was there, and it brought everything to a whole new level. That was to say, when I love about the original game, I remember going back even to the very first experience of it. Like I've mentioned it before, in even the very first video I put up. You can make sure you check that one out as well, where I do explain it, where I get my first playthrough of it, and I was just terrified when I was playing. I didn't know what to be doing, like, you know, and this here was just the same, actually even just as much so. You knew that it was going to be similar, but at the same time it was still in itself was a different experience, because you didn't know the layouts of the rooms, you didn't know where the enemies were going to pop up, and it just felt very different. So again, it was an absolute awesome experience. As I say, like I always go back to say Resident Evil 1 is my favourite game, but the Resident Evil franchise in general is my favourite franchise of games of all time. It really is. can get see there's another door with a specific set of key that I've never been able to get into, which is a bit of a shame, because I just would like to know how that you could actually get into it, to see what's actually in it. I've never really seen anything even online. There's not too much online just to show people that have actually what was in the room in particular. I've never really been able to find really anything that shows you. But even at that, with a demo, like compared to most demos that you would have played even back in the day, this actually was a wee bit longer than most, and you could go a decent bit into the game, even though it technically wasn't that far, but you were able to go a good bit into it, like. And even though a lot of it was shown in the game here, a lot of it did make it into the final game, but there was a few elements that actually weren't, that didn't show up. Like with some of those, like I mentioned, those keys for instance, they didn't show up in the final game really at all. So in all those rooms you were able to get into, but there was obviously different items and so forth in them. So it would have been interesting to see what would have been in those rooms. You'll just have to excuse the sound effects that are actually here. It's just the version of the game that I'm playing. It's lost some of the audio quality somewhere along the line. It's just to get it working. So, but even at that, it doesn't matter. The game still works anyway. Like, so it's just as long as you're able to play it, that's the main thing. A few little niggles here and that doesn't really affect you all that much in terms of how it plays, because it still looks awesome and it plays really well. Yeah, there was so many cool kind of features in it that definitely gave you a glimpse of really what was to come with the final game. And the cool thing about it is, as well, is after playing this here, it actually just made you want to go back and play Resident Evil 1 a lot more, to try and figure out more stuff as well, because you were trying to get a glimpse of the likes of how the story was going to go and how this here concluded into the piece or followed on from the original game. And as you can see here, the likes of some of the puzzles even here are very, very similar to some of the puzzles in the original game as well. They have some of the same setups and that, which was familiar straight away. Now again, I will admit I didn't get this right the first time. Actually, I think the first time I did get it wrong. I think I had them facing the wrong way, but that'll show you. But again, back then, even though we played these games a lot, we weren't as familiar or as aware of certain things in these games, so it did leave for a lot more mistakes to be made, but that was the fun of it. Because you knew if you couldn't do it the first time, you would keep trying until you got it. That was the thing about these games, because with a lot of these older games, there was very little room for error, so it made you want to play it until you perfected it. That was the thing about it. That's why games like that games were harder in those times. I think even gamers in general would have been better at those type of games because they were harder to master. So if you could master those games, it was definitely a way to go, for sure. Again, you can collect some items like from puzzles and that in here, but there was no real way of actually using them, which is a pity. But I'd imagine they had something to do with the likes of if you could get those keys. That was the only quarrel that you actually had. It was a really cool experience being able to actually play the first segment of the game, not only to be outside on the streets and to see the devastation, but then to also be able to go indoors and even to go into the likes of the RPD, the police department, and to see how the influence of the outside had been brought inside as well. So it literally showed that nowhere was safe from the T-virus, that even there were zombies everywhere. Like, so that was the awesome thing about this. So as we were playing through the demo, like, we pretty much searched everywhere, and it just showed occurrences of possible outcomes that could happen in the game or even in this demo as well. showing you certain areas where things could be potentially happen, which was pretty cool. So it did definitely get your mind wondering as to, where could this door lead? What does this vent do? Could it lead to somewhere? These items that's on the desk, do they have any relevance to what's going on, and so forth. So it was really, really interesting, and that's the cool thing. That is the one thing I love about these type of games, and Resident Evil in general, especially the older type of games, was the exploration element of it as well, the puzzle solving, and the fact that you had to backtrack in order to get to one place. You had to go back to another place. I know it might seem repetitive, but for these type of games, it was definitely, I think, one of the best features of it. It just added so much character to the game. And what was cool is even like this here with the photograph, it shows references to the original game as well. So this was the original team before they were most of them taken out in the original game, in the storyline. And as you can see, there was only a couple of the survivors there, like Jill and Chris and Barry. So it's pretty cool to actually have that there as a reference point as well. So it kind of ties in with the storyline as well. Yeah, and just played the hell out of the demo and just kept searching and just really enjoyed it. And even there was another cool feature as well. Now I forgot to show it in this video as well, is when you went back downstairs and you were going through the corridors with the boarded up windows. If you went back after a while, zombies' hands would come through the barriers and they would grab you and you could start wrestling with them, which is really, really cool. I remember the first time I did it when we were exploring, it scared the living crap out of me because it just happened all of a sudden. You could just hear the hand reaching through and you hear the zombies moaning and they grab you. And I remember I jumped off the chair and my mate was like, he was the same because he didn't expect it as well, because he had played it but he didn't go back that far, and even he jumped as well. He's like, holy crap, you know. So just that'll tell you the influence this game had, and the jump scares, it was real. It was definitely real. That was the awesome part of it. It was such an awesome game. And like I said, it definitely led the way for things to come, really. But even at that, it was definitely interesting to see the changes from what had been put in place originally. Because at that time we didn't really know too much about the original game being scrapped, and that this was the newer version of it. But even at that, when I look back, you could see where it was going, so it was really interesting to see everything in place. And it would also have been interesting to kind of get a glimpse of where that game could have potentially gone as well. Because I know that there's been a load of articles and information and debates online as to whether that would have been relevant, but I still think that it would have been as well. That even the version that we got, and even in terms of this demo, it's still awesome and it still fits in really, really well. And sure, even at that, this is still considered one of the best sequels of all time. So that was the end of the demo there. Literally once you went to pick up that key, that was one of the keys that you potentially could open up something else, but the problem was you couldn't use it as soon as you went near it at all, which was a bit of a pity because it meant then you couldn't really explore or go further to see where everything was. Like I said, the only way that you could find or open those doors to find them keys was literally to use those cheats like I mentioned with some of those old cards, which was a pity. I've still, even to this day, never been able to open those doors to figure out what's behind them. But even at that, the demo was still awesome and it's definitely worthwhile playing through. So for any of you that are fans of Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 in general, I'm sure that some of you would have actually played this demo and found it to be very good as well, and to give you a good insight as to what the game was about. So that's it, that's the preview for Resident Evil 2 that came with Resident Evil Director's Cut, and if you do get a chance to ever play it in the future, by all means do, because it's definitely worthwhile. So hopefully you've liked this video, and if you have, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also leave a like on the video. And also make sure to let me know down in the comments if you have subscribed, and I'll try to respond to all your messages. Also, I'd like to know if anyone out there actually does know how to open those doors, and if they know of anywhere that you can actually find out how to actually do so, because I'd love to hear it. If anyone knows, make sure to drop a comment down below, let me know, because it's definitely something I'd want to explore again. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.